Welcome all to our presentation. I'm Michael Webb from G3G, and on the line with me to help me on the webinar is Chris. He's from Best. Next page, please. As we're here to talk about the Best module GL clearing. Just a quick agenda for today. Quickly run through who G3G is, the Best module, standard SAP functionality, automated clearing, manual clearing. We'll then get into a demo of the actual solution, and then we'll have a question and answer session right at the end. Please pop through any questions during the session. I'll be answering them if I can during the session, or we'll answer them at the end. So G3G is a SAP partner. We've been around for 25 years. We are everything one-stop shop for SAP, from advisory to implementations to support. We offer the solution for SAP. We're part of the Group Elephant brand, which is about 20 plus brands, over 3,500 employees under the brand, and we have our presence around 42 countries. Next slide, please, Chris. Under those brands, these are some of the companies that work in the brands under the Group Elephant, G3G being one of them, and around the SAP, ERP, S4HANA, and ECC6. Next slide, please. As we said, we've got a global approach. We've got a footprint from the States all the way to Australia, with able to support any entity globally. Next slide, please, Chris. And these are just some of the clients that we work on during the global. G3G has been a partner with Best since 2019. We are a global support and implementation partner of Best. On that note, I'm going to hand over to Chris.
Great, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Michael. Yes, and welcome everyone. I'm very excited to always, any opportunity I get to talk about the open item clearing module. It's something that has been a very personal journey of mine, and I can talk quite passionately about it. So hopefully that comes across in today's session. But just to give you some context on Best, we create in-SAP modules, solutions for where we feel that standard SAP doesn't quite provide the needs for our customers. We are an SAP partner and certified with SAP. So all of our modules, we've actually certified to S4HANA 2023. But the beauty of it is it's inside of SAP. And hopefully, that'll come across in the demo. It really looks like I am just using standard SAP functionality. And that, I think, translates to our users who can take to the Best functionality very easily, because it really does look and feel like SAP. Just to note, we have our four modules. We have a balance sheet reconciliation module for managing, automating month-end reconciliations directly in SAP with online approvals and management reporting. We have the open item clearing module, which we'll be focusing on today. That's just, I'll get into that in terms of really optimizing clearing open items within SAP itself. And then two sub-ledger modules. We have a customer clearing. That's really more an extension or perhaps more focused open item clearing primarily on customers, where we actually saw debtors departments who were spending hours to allocate customer payments to their customer accounts, and having a payment in the bank, a 10-page remittance on their desk, and clicking away in those dreaded manual clearing transactions to click and make everything go blue so that they could actually finally balance and post the clearing. And lastly, the vendor statement recon and reader module. And again, this is reconciling your vendor account, now taking your vendor or supplier statement into SAP and automating the reconciliation of the items on his statement to your vendor account line items. And that can all be automated, integrated with the payment process, so that you can hold back payment on certain items, and then produce a reconciliation that you can provide to your vendor or supplier to explain exactly what you're paying, what you're not paying, and just close those lines of communication in terms of queries and discrepancies on the account. But like I said, we're going to be focusing on the open item clearing module. And I guess I'm going to start to just explain why we actually created an open item clearing module. And because everyone, thinks, well, I can clear open items in SAP. I have automated clearing. I have manual clearing. So why the need for a best module? So, and this is really born out of, like I said, my frustrations. 20 odd years now of being an SAP consultant, and I worked at a lot of retail clients, and somehow ended up being charged with clearing open items for my customers. So I really delved into the depths of trying to get the most out of clearing open items in SAP and using the standard SAP automated clearing and manual clearing processes. So what I found was, where I was having issues with automated clearing was, whilst it can work very well if everything works perfectly, was that by and large that wasn't the case. And these are some of the reasons. So first and foremost is that clearing rules are configured at a chart of accounts level. So if you want a specific rule for an account, you actually set that for your chart. And that might be like, maybe it's document date and assignment. And that means that for that account, it applies to all company codes using your chart of accounts. And whilst that might work for some companies, it might not work for some others who might actually want to maybe clear that account using a text reference field. And unfortunately, now you get into the situation where majority rules, and it's a discussion of, well, this rule actually applies and suits 80%. So sorry for you. And unfortunately, if you were this one company code, you now fall out of the automated clearing option and have to now use manual clearing. In addition to this, and perhaps this was the most limiting and frustrating around the automated clearing, is that it wouldn't actually allow for matches and clearing to be done beyond a single account, and I guess by extension, beyond a individual company code. So it was really quite frustrating, where you could actually select multiple accounts. There might be debits and credits with perfectly matching references, but it would only ever look within that one GL account or that one customer account for matches, and never beyond that. So scenarios where you might have debits and credits sitting obviously for clearing, you can't actually use the automated clearing to do that, and in the same manner across different company codes, and that was very limiting.
So Chris, when you had clients with these types of situations, how did you try and clear these with entries without best?
Well, okay, so I would to enable the automated clearing, which was kind of the default. I wanted to get the most out of this, because I just hated the manual clearing so much. So in scenarios like this, I'd actually post journals into the system to satisfy the requirements of automated clearing. So if we consider, I would then post the credits in the one account with the perfect reference, and the debits in the other account with the reference. So that when I ran the automated clearing, it was happy from its rule set to say, right, well, everything's in the one account, the references line up perfectly, and now I can clear. But it was not ideal, because now I'm posting thousands of line items into the system just to be able to enable clearing. So I'm pushing information in just to almost get it out, and it was terrifying, because anything goes wrong, something goes to the wrong account, or the reference is slightly mismatched, and now all of a sudden I've got additional information that hasn't cleared, that's now just lurking in the system. So often, I would go through this process, realize maybe I've done something wrong, and spend another couple of hours just to kind of backtrack and get everything out of the system. And you realize you've spent 5 hours just to get to the same point you were at the start of the day. And it was just, so I don't know, it felt fraught with risk, just to enable clearing. So those were some of the tricks that I would have to try, but as a result, you can't use standard SAP automated clearing for these scenarios. And lastly, just on the automated clearing, is that the references need to be exact and in the same field. So if there was a perfect reference in an assignment field or in a text field, I can't match those items. It will only look within that specific reference. And this would perhaps be the most frustrating, is that it was very specific. So you know, an extras leading 0 on a reference meant that it was a separate reference and treated independently. So again, you know, like examples like this, I would put this into Excel. I would cleanse these references. I would trim it, and then start running mass updates on these references. You know, so again, you know, now there's an audit trail of a change to a reference, and hopefully all of that works and everything's fine. And now I can actually go and run automated clearing. But again, I'm kind of hands in the system to try and manipulate to get the clearing to work. Okay, so once you fall foul of this automated clearing and say, right, well, this isn't going to work, well, then you have manual clearing, and I guess this is where I spent far too many hours of my life trying to get the most out of the system, and playing around with these screens. And if the real interesting thing with this manual clearing is that it allows you to be able to clear across accounts, to be able to clear across company codes. It has the functionality to be able to do all these wonderful things. It is just so difficult to use with large volumes of data and lots of accounts. And that's where it really becomes so cumbersome to work with. It's fine if you've got 5 items that you want to clear, but when you start looking at large volumes, and multiple accounts, multiple companies, then it really isn't very user friendly. And you have like a screen like this where you've got 8 accounts that you can choose, and you have to populate the account type, the company code, tick all these little boxes, and if you need any more, you click here, pops up again, and you kind of find yourself copying and pasting for hours just to get, you know, select your 50 accounts that you might want to have a look at. And once you've actually selected those, you end up on this screen, which if you've got, you know, 20,000 line items, you have to kind of click away and make everything balanced to 0 before you can post anything. So not very user friendly if you now have to go and match a lot of items, because you're now stuck in the screen until you can get to that endpoint and finally save, and hopefully not get timed out or kicked out if you go grab a cup of coffee and lose everything that you've done to that point. But also just, you know, practically the display, everything's kind of crammed to the side. You have very limited fields that you can have a look at. And if you need another reference, again, it's actually a configurable line layout. So if I wanted text, for instance, in this display that I'm looking at, I would have to have that as a configured line layout. And if not, I'd go to the SAP team and say, please, can you create this for me? And then it's like, well, okay, well, we'll have to drop document number or drop assignment. So all of these kind of practicalities that really can drive an end user a bit crazy.
So, Chris, looking back at your experience with the manual phase here and large data, how did you approach this with your customers in the past without Best?
So actually, when I got to having to use manual clearing, there were 2 approaches that I took. One was if I just go back to the screen, was actually trying to maximize work lists. So I kind of would create work lists for customers, for vendors, for GL accounts, so that actually when I come here, I could actually select a work list, which would represent maybe 50 accounts that I could pull through without me having to put all 50 in here. The same for company codes. I create these work lists for company codes, and in that way try and minimize the amount of pain to try and select hundreds of things here. But you know that even that itself, maybe you get too much, maybe you get too little. There's a new company code. So it was always a kind of a constant updating and never really a great foolproof solution. Otherwise, sometimes I knew what I wanted to clear. So I had it. There might be 8,000 items across different accounts that I knew I wanted to clear. I had it in Excel. How do I do this now? You know, so because unfortunately I can select everything, but I can't really filter by document number and by line item, because you end up with too much or too little depending on how those filters work. So what I would do is then I would actually say, right, well, I know what the document number, what the fiscal year is, what the company code is, what the line item is, which made it unique in SAP. So I'd go and run an update again, and I'll choose a random reference that perhaps wasn't being used, like an XREF 2 or 3, and then go and put a unique reference in there. So it might be Chris clearing 27 September or something, and bang that into there and run this whole mass update for all of those specific line items on that reference. And then when I came here, I could select all those accounts, all those company codes, but then filter on that specific reference with that value. And then, you know, hold fingers that it comes back and it balances to 0. And if it's got, you know, a difference, then I'm like, oh, okay, now what? You know, so now you kind of back to scrambling to see which is missing. Again, you know, just kind of, you know, always fraught with danger and risk, you know, to do these types of things to try and get information out. But yeah, so that was my approach to this manual clearing. But
So what I've picked up from these two scenarios you've identified, there was a lot of manual work you had to do, a lot of manual prep before you actually even started to look at the clearing side of it.
Yeah, for sure. And often I might know the answer, because often, you know, we always default to Excel half the time. We can get information out, we can play around, and then it's like, okay, I've got 12,000 items. I know exactly how they should clear. Now what? You know, and it was very difficult to now actually take that and say, well, how do I practically go and clear those items in SAP now? And that was the difficulty, and then that's where kind of those tricks came in, of these mass updates and things. And it used to just, I guess what drove me crazy was that you had, on the one hand, you had the capability to actually do this clearing. There was nothing stopping you clearing cross account or clearing cross company code, but you just couldn't automate it. And automate it, just, there was just this divide between the two. And that was really where it was like, come on, there's got to be a better way that I can actually put the pieces of the puzzle together and let the system, you know, do the hard work in the background to kick it off. And that's, I guess, where it leads on to my functional demo of there is a better way of using of the best GL clearing that we can use. So yeah, so I guess that's probably a perfect time for me to jump into this functional demo. And we'll certainly have lots of time for questions afterwards. But in terms of just having a look at some of the quick scenarios that I'm going to be discussing, is I'm going to take you through some of the basic functionality, just so you can get a feel for what we can do, and how we try and tackle those inherent limitations and standard SAP functionality within our module. And then also just show you some slight variations in terms of having a look at how we can look at totals and actually be able to group totals together, just to enable some matching. And then also just have a look at an interesting kind of side use for our clearing, is that we can use it for inter or intra-company scenarios. So we have customers that use this on a daily basis to actually clear inter-company and intra-company transactions, so that they can make head or tail of what's going on in these accounts. And also just how we can actually use this as almost like a reconciliation tool that can be complementary to an intercompany reconciliation approach that you might be going through at month end. Okay, so with that said, I'm just going to jump straight into SAP. Okay, so just having a look here, I'm going to go into our best GL main menu. So you can see it's inside of SAP, very much a look and feel. Everything is real time, so you'll see I'll be able to drill into the documents. As soon as I post clearing, that is going to go and post clearing inside of SAP. I'm not managing any external systems or managing statuses and updates. Okay, so I'm going to run my clearing. I'm just going to go and select a variant, and I'll kind of explain exactly what I'm going to be looking at here from a basic functionality point of view. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to select multiple customers across multiple company codes, and I'm going to select multiple GL accounts across multiple company codes. And now typically, if I were to run this in standard SAP automated clearing, it would pull everything together, but would keep each account completely separate from each other. And you'll see that's not going to be the case here. It's important for me to note that I'm going to run this all online. So I'm going to run it online so you can see the functionality, But what I could do is I could just run this as an automated job to run every 20 minutes, every hour, every day, however often you want. And matches are going to be automatically created in a clearing batch that can be processed whenever is convenient or optimal from a performance perspective. So please bear in mind, while it looks like I might be doing a bit of clicking, everything like this can be fully automated. Okay, so just to show you here, I've got 316 open items that have come back across all of these customers, GL accounts, and company codes, and it's automatically found 40 of the items that it can match. And what I did was I basically said, look, please match on assignment. So I had basically created a sort so that it could actually create subtotals on assignment. And what it does, it treats that assignment as unique across all of these line items. So it doesn't care that this customer and this GL account are two different accounts. It doesn't care that they may be in two different company codes. Everything in this pool of open items is now available for me to match together. So what that gives you is the flexibility of being able to create these matching rules and assign it with your specific selection to create the optimum kind of matches within your system. Okay, so with that in mind, I could very easily create different criteria if I wanted to. I could say, well, maybe by posting date, profit center, and assignment. And I could actually create that kind of logic to sort and match on that. You can see obviously nothing comes back, but it's really as flexible as me being able to select anything here to be able to create that rule. So this isn't a configurable rule. It's not something that's set in config that I can't change. And obviously I can create as many of these as possible. And one company could use one rule set and another company another rule set. So you have that kind of complete flexibility. And I guess just lastly to note, I've got a nice, quite stripped down display here so that you can see everything nicely and clearly, but I'm not limited to what I see here. If I just switch, this is what I'm kind of looking at, but I could have any reference field that's sitting in accounting documents on the header or on the line item. You can see, I think there's 458 options that I've got in this list that I can pull in. So that means any of those fields I can pull into here and use as part of my clearing criteria, which is immensely powerful because now I'm not just limited to a specific subset of rules. I really have that complete flexibility, and it's very useful to pull in special GL indicators, payment blocks, dunning blocks, document types. The world is kind of your oyster, and it really gives you that flexibility to create these fantastic matching rules to enable clearing in SAP. Okay, so just moving on with this example, you can see this assignment field looks nice and tidy, how it's matched it. But if I just drill down into this customer entry, you can see that the assignment field actually on that customer has 4 leading zeros on it. But I've actually stripped that out to enable this match. And how I strip that out is that we can create these modifications in the system to be able to kind of cleanse the references. Now, it's not changing the references, it's just programmatically cleansing it to enable the matching. So I always have the audit history of the original reference with those leading zeros, for example. But here I've got remove leading spaces, leading zeros, special characters, etc. And there's a nice test tool to see, what the original value will end up looking like once I apply this modification. And it's quite fun because you can play around here and check out what that test would do in terms of how that's going to now cleanse that reference. And you can take it to a step further and say, right, well, I could strip out alphas, and then it trims out those alphas, or flip it the other way and take out numerics. So you really have that flexibility to create this, and then you can assign it to different references in your display. And that gives you a nice flexible way of being able to manage references without having to go back to the bank and say, please, can you pop this reference in this field, or go back and start changing interfaces to accommodate matching at the back end of the process. Okay, so now if I'm happy with this, now just to show you the flexibility in terms of how I can manage clearing, I might be happy with these 40 and say, right, that's great. I actually want to clear those, but I want to keep working with the remaining 276 items. So I can bank those 40. So what I've done is I've said, right, I want to accept those 40 and I want to carry on. And maybe I want to say, I know that often things match on the header. So I can actually have, and this could be a different job that was running where now it's actually going to go and look at matching on header text. And here you can see I get another 60 items that can match. And here you can see it's a customer account in company 2 against the GL account in company 3. So again, no restriction on account type, no restriction on company code and being able to match these together. And I might be happy with that. And again, I might have a nice modification to clean up these references and say, right, okay, cool. I'm happy with those 60. I'd actually like to bank those as well. You know, so now I've got 100 that I've matched and I'm down to 216 open items. Reference is often a nice one that I might get to match. And I get another 60 based on this, again, across different accounts, across different company codes. So just for this exercise, I'm gonna bank these. And now I've just gone over 50% of what I've matched. Now I've matched on assignment, header text, and reference. And I might find that I get to the end where I've actually said, right now, I don't think there's much else. But I do know that sometimes these interfaces muddle the references and sometimes they end up in the wrong place. And where it should be in my text, it's actually in my header reference. What we can do is we can actually switch our logic from a sort where I've kind of primarily been creating subtotals is actually to then say, right, well, let's see if I can match across the different references. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, right, well, I know that my text is primarily my main reference. So what I want to do is I want to search my text and let's see if I can find any matches of that reference in my assignment, in my header reference, and in my header text. And when I apply that, you'll see I get a nice column match little icon that pops up because it sees, okay, you've got multiple different selections. And as soon as I switch to a column match, it now actually says, right, okay, now I can actually find references across these different fields. And now it's actually matched the text into my assignment. And if we look at that first example, this is my like kind of poster child of the best open item clearing because it's actually got cleansed, modified references that it's matching across different fields. It's matching text to assignment, and it's matching it across a GL account, a customer in 2 different company codes. You know, so all of those kind of inherent restrictions in standard SAP have been broken down. And again, this can be an automated process that I'm running as often as I want to enable these matches to go and post so that at the end of the day, I'm looking at what is left. I think if I just scroll down, you'll see here's some additional matches where it's matched text to header text. So you can see that's where it is actually looking in all of those destination matches. And again, now I could actually add that to my review. And if I come back just to have a look at how I'm tracking, you know, I've now on 83% of what has been cleared. And I know I'm clicking around, but once you get the hang of this, even if I was doing this online and not running this in an automated way, so quick and easy to have multiple criteria to pick up, you know, 60% on this, 30% on that, and maybe the balance in some column compares. And now I could actually go and post that clearing batch to enable this clearing. And I could actually create the clearing batch and have it post this evening. So you can manage it from a system performance perspective, or you could actually have it running as often as every minute to process the clearing. Okay, so just to have a look at these last 3 scenarios, I think we're tracking well for time. I think I'll probably be maybe another 10 minutes, so we'll have plenty of time for questions. I noted that we would just have a look at perhaps some totals functionality in where I'll be able to have a look at things slightly differently. So if I have a look at this selection, you can see I'm actually subtotaling this on fiscal year and period. This might be a process where, I don't know, maybe like a VAT account or something like that kind of clears to 0 with month-end journals. So this might be something that I would expect to balance to 0, but maybe it only happens slightly the following day of the next month. So, to determine that, I can actually compress this to say, right, well, just show me the totals. And then I can actually see these totals in this manner. Now I'm running everything without a tolerance, so we can obviously factor in tolerances, but you can see everything that is happy according to my criteria, that's 0. It can clear, but it can't clear periods 3, 4, 9, and 10. But if I wanted to clear these, it's very easy for me to manually group these together. So I can do this at an item level. So I could actually group specific items, or I could group totals like this. So this actually represents a whole lot of documents for that period. It's very easy for me to select those 2 lines and actually just say, look, please group those together. And it'll actually go and put them together. Now, because they offset to 0, it'll actually allow me to go and clear that. So again, being able to kind of group these, let's create a new group, to actually be able to group those together allows me that last little bit of functionality where maybe there just is no reference, or maybe there is this mechanism where I can actually just do this, and there's the whole year of transactions that can be cleared, and I can go and post that. We also, what I don't have in this for us, but you can actually upload from Excel as well. So that scenario where I was speaking about, I've got the 12,000 items sitting in Excel. How do I enable it? We can actually just go and upload that, and it'll actually select those specific line items. And then I can just say, please clear. So now I don't have to do that mass reference update. I actually can integrate directly from Excel into Best to enable that clearing. Okay. So now, just in terms of scenario 3, what we found was that we can use this clearing very effectively to clear inter and intra-company balances. So in this case, what I've got is a customer and vendor across different company codes. A good, I guess, business scenario for this would be like a centralized warehouse that might be distributing to stores across the country. And there's this logistics process where there's the stock that's issued, and there's the billing from a customer perspective. And then, a day or 2 later, it arrives in store, they receive the stock and capture the invoice. And so the vendor entry comes a bit later. What we found was that the customer of ours was really struggling with managing this process. So what we did is we automated the clearing because the invoice reference was a great reference for this, but we were able to then run it for all of their customers and centralized DC vendor to be able to clear. And now what ended up happening was that all of these balances, they would aggregate it per day, and it would actually post the clearing and then move these balances up into the true intercompany accounts between the company codes. But what it meant was now when they were looking at the customer and vendor, they could actually see what was actually on the road. So now they could actually have a look at, and they were only expecting to see open customer items that should, in a day or 2, depending on where it was being delivered to, would be cleared. And now they could start actually managing their logistics process a lot better, because it wasn't just kind of hundreds of open items sitting on the account. So having a look at this, you can see I'm using a reference. So this would be the invoice reference. And you can see typically I would expect to see I've got the account type in here, where now I can see a customer and vendor entry. And I can see that, between this customer and this is the vendor in a different company code. And now I could have this running every hour and helping to manage the balances on these accounts. Yeah, so you can see now I would be able to kind of have a look and see what was left on here. And using my example, I would primarily expect to see customer entries here. So as soon as I see perhaps an open vendor entry, I'd be, okay, something's gone wrong there. What's happened? So now I can actually start managing the transactions on this basis, and not just kind of get lost in the volume effectively.
So Chris,
okay,
can you
yeah.
can you actually drill down to the transaction level? You've got the GL transaction, but can you actually see what the source transaction is?
Yes, yeah. So the beauty of being inside of SAP is it's very easy for me to click on the document, and from here it's a normal document display. So I can go into the document environment, into the original document. I can into the sales order, the purchase order. Very easy for me from here. You know, if there were attachments that were done, like invoices that were being captured, I'd have you know, access to that. So you know, you really are inside of SAP and dealing with everything real time. Yeah.
That's the beauty. It's the fact that you're working in SAP, there's no data moving or going out of your system, getting turned around by a third party engine and then pushed back in. It's all live. So if people are still transacting while you're doing clearing, does it automatically update, or do we have to run something for the new transactions to come in?
Well, you know, the beauty of clearing is that actually it can only be cleared once. So if I had this and someone actually cleared this item and I try to clear it afterwards, it would just say no open items relevant for clearing. So you know, if someone gets in there first, then it doesn't you know, so it's quite a low risk in terms of managing it from that perspective. But yeah, you know, so you know, you know, very useful to be able to just automate this and have this running, so that often people come in and they'll just manage the exceptions, and then maybe it's that scenario of just manually grouping things, or maybe identifying a new clearing criteria that they might want to apply to that subset.
And then that can be saved and automated for later.
100%, 100%. Okay, and now just lastly, I guess what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a recon report here in another session. And what this is looking at is perhaps looking at, now I'm reconciling my intercompanies at month end. And what we found is that the clearing tool can actually be quite useful as a tool to assist with that reconciliation process. So what I've done here is I've actually got in our master data for our reconciliations is unique combinations. So I've got combinations that represent my intercompany relationships. And what I can do is I can run this at month end and actually have a look at each of my combinations or my relationships to see that they offset, because I would actually expect that the debits and credits across the two intercompanies would offset. And you can see that if I kind of open this up, you'll see there's balances in two different company codes. And in this case, I've got like specific trading partners in my relationship, so I know how to put the pieces of this puzzle together. But if I just look at it at this level, I can actually see of the 10 relationships, there are 2 that have a misbalance. So what we have is we have customers that actually run automated approvals on this and actually say, right, well, if it's 0, automatically approve. So they can actually auto approve, you know, 8 of these 10 combinations, leaving, you know, combination 3 and what's that, 8, oh, sorry, 9, that would then have to be investigated and approved. Now, this might be thousands of transactions, and now it's like a matter of, okay, well, which one is it? And it might be quite tricky to have a look at. So what I've got is effectively all of those accounts for those company codes that I'm going to run in my clearing tool. And you'll see, you know, there's just under 18,500 transactions. This, you know, we've optimized this process to run as quickly as possible, so it can really deal with large volumes of data. But here you can see I've actually brought in my cross-company code number. In this case, and I could actually say, right, well, look, if I actually go and sort this, because I'm always expecting, you know, this transaction to keep the link between the two company codes. If I have a look, okay, I can see actually almost all of them balance to 0. There's that contra entry, but I have 5 items that don't match. And if I just hide my matched items, I get down to these 5, and you can see the amount imbalance is 324,680, which is exactly what the balance is across these 2 relationships. So if, you know, in a way of not trying to get stuck with 18,500 line items, you know, you know, effectively utilizing the power of the matching functionality, I can quite quickly come down to these specific entries and identify perhaps what's going wrong. And from here, as we've seen, I can go into that document and actually go and have a look and see, you know, perhaps perhaps what's gone wrong here. Go perhaps have a look at both, and I can actually see it. One leg's being cleared, and so someone cleared one leg without clearing the other leg, and that's where my discrepancy is coming in, and that's all quite quick and easy to get to. So that's just a side kind of additional benefit of having this to be able to use this functionality for this purpose. Okay, yeah, so that's kind of the end of my demo. I guess if I just wrap up my slide was just in kind of conclusion, is that when it comes to looking at the clearing of these open items, if everything is going to work perfectly and you're going to get transactions in the same company, in the same account, in the same field with the exact same reference, then standard SAP works. And a good example of that is the GRR account, where everything is very stringently controlled in terms of being able to post everything to the exact same account and have a purchase order and line item number for clearing. But when you start getting into different company codes, that's where we can automate our clearing, as you could see. The same with different accounts. It doesn't matter if it's a GL account, a customer, or a vendor. It'll actually put those pieces of the puzzle together. We can also match across different fields. That was when I used my column match. So I actually could find the text in the one item against the header text in another, or in the assignment of another. And at worst, if the reference is not exactly the same, I can cleanse it using our modifications, strip out those leading zeros, so that we can maximize the clearing. All of this we can have running with different criteria for different selections, running as often as you want in the background, just posting this clearing to manage the volume of open items. And yeah, so we've got customers that are clearing millions of open items using Best, and yeah, it's just a much better way to clear items. And I know once you've kind of used it, it's almost impossible to go back to the manual clearing. It just feels like going back to the dark ages. Yeah, so that's it from me in terms of demo and presentation. And yeah, we can take any questions.
Thank you so much, Chris. If you guys have got any questions, you're more than welcome to put it through in the question and answer button at the bottom while we wait for some to come through. You mentioned, so if we look at the Best open module, and who would we consider are the main customers for this module? We've got so many roles in FI, it's hard to put down a broad spectrum to that.
Yeah, a good question. I would, for me, and you can tell, I guess I'm passionate about it, and call me biased, but I would say any SAP customer, anyone using SAP is a potential customer for this module, because just by the sheer nature of how transactions and accounts are used in SAP. So customers and vendors are inherently open item managed just because they are subledger accounts. But on the bulk of it, most balance sheet accounts are open item managed. And as soon as that open item managed setting is set, it creates a dependency on things to be cleared, and it creates a responsibility or burden on the accountants to manage those accounts accordingly. So so now you have to clear the account. So that's why I kind of say anyone, but obviously the clearing is exacerbated by complexity of transactions, volume of transactions. So that's why we find a lot of retail customers, because they're just swamped every day. Every day there are thousands of transactions coming in from point of sale, from bank accounts, and it's like a siege. You gotta fight that every day. And if you don't have these automated processes, it just becomes a bit overwhelming until you finally lose the battle, and you just kind of give up to leaving everything stuck in your historic open items.
I can imagine with the amount of volume, especially in the retail industry, it has a ton of benefits. I remember working on accounts and trying to open them, and they would just take forever to open. So that open management just helps it there. And I can imagine even with month-end recons, it's got a great benefit.
100%. You know, the month-end recons is a good example because you come to a month-end recon, and obviously you know, you run it now, maybe the balance is made up of 3 items, but you've got 1,000 in your list, and it's really quite hard to know what you're looking at. So managing those accounts obviously keeps it clean, so that the reconciliation process is much quicker, much easier, much more effective. But it actually goes beyond that as well. Like you said, performance. So now you run it, and actually now you sit there and wait while it runs 30,000 line items, you know, just and even beyond that, if you now want to start looking at archiving, archiving is a prerequisite. Sorry, clearing is a prerequisite for archiving. So typically, an item is cleared for maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years, depending on your archiving strategy, before you can even archive it. So if it's sitting as open in your system, you haven't even started the clock ticking on being able to archive that until you've actually cleared it. So you know, it just feeds into all of these types of things, and you see it often comes up now. People are wanting to move to S/4HANA, and I'll say, oh, now we need to clean up our system, because obviously through that migration process, it's much easier with cleaner data. And now it's like, oh, we need to go and crunch this 10-year history that we've let you know, kind of grow. You know, so yeah, the benefits are numerous in terms of managing your open items.
We got a question coming through. Can you clear anything in a manner that you cannot do as part of standard SAP?
Yeah, good question. So in terms of answering that, we cannot break any of the inherent SAP rules. So that's important to note. Obviously, what I've shown you is ways that we can put the pieces of the puzzle together that you can't in SAP. But at the end of the day, we cannot break or transgress any of the inherent configuration or rules within SAP. So by example, you know, if an account is not open item managed, we can't clear it. You know, we don't have any special mechanisms for breaking the rules of SAP. And also within that, when we actually go and post that clearing, it's using a normal SAP clearing transaction. So whatever we do, you can post in SAP itself. But what we're doing is we're putting everything together and pushing it through, so that that hard work is being done in the background by the system. So when we post, your normal configuration applies, and that means small differences. We'll use your small difference account and your default cost center that you've got. We need the foreign exchange accounts to be configured if we're going to be clearing foreign transactions and posting gains and losses. We need intercompany relationships to be set up if we're going to be posting and clearing across company codes. And the same with tolerances. It'll pick up and run in accordance with the tolerance that's set up in the GL, the customer, the vendor, or your SAP user itself. And I guess lastly, because we're posting a normal SAP transaction, the normal document splitting applies. So those normal rule sets of how the clearing document is posted is SAP standard.
Another one that came through, doing large amounts of recons, you processing them, you make a mistake, you want to change your mind. Is there any functionality to help assist that?
Yes, we did, and I guess we learned quite quickly that with this functionality to be able to clear thousands, we need to actually be able to cater for that exact thing. What in the movie, with great power comes great responsibility. So
Spider-Man.
yeah, that was it. You know, now we've given you this kind of ability to really tackle these open items, but it does happen. And a good example of that is, I want to clear everything at month end, so I want to clear it at the 30th of September. But I'm processing this on the 2nd of October, and I forget to backdate my clearing date. So I go and clear 10,000 line items, and now it's cleared in the wrong period. So we've created a mass reset and reverse functionality that we can actually be able to go and easily reset and reverse those clearing transactions. So if you do something like that, it's we can undo it.
Yeah. And another one that came through, is any additional best reporting on open item clearing?
We do. We actually have our own reports, so we can actually run that for a specific period. You might have a look at a specific month. And what we do is we actually categorize everything by how it was cleared. So we can actually identify, did you use best? Was it manual clearing? Was it standard SAP automated clearing? And that can help you drive to identify where maybe buckets of items are being cleared manually and go, right, hang on, we need to move this into an automated process. But we can break that down by company code, by GL account, by user, so you can actually start tracking who's clearing what in the system, how effective is everyone being. So that which can be quite useful, because by and large, tracking clearing in standard SAP is quite tricky.
I can imagine this assists with your year-end audits, where information can be provided quite quickly to the auditors to satisfy them that things are being done properly.
Yeah, exactly. And you can now start seeing the activity and churn of these open items that's being done. So if you need to track specific accounts, you can do that and actually go, well, I thought you were always clearing this, but nothing's happened in the last few months. You can also manage how much of who is actually doing the clearing, versus who isn't. So certainly, any information like that is always valuable.
Okay, I think that was the last question. If there's no more questions, if you don't mind putting up the last slide for us, please, Chris.
Yeah, sure.
So thank you, everybody, for your time this morning. If you have any more questions or would like to get a more personalized demo or any information out of us, please feel free to contact me or Best, and we will get back to you with any additional information or getting a more personalized demo done for you. But yet again, thank you so much for your time.